I mostly read public domain books here on Glenn Reads Books to You, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist or sexist or bigoted, but in there somewhere is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations, like, making sex. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you're grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining. Covered in itchy thistles, while World War III is breathing down my now, son of a... All right, take a seat, you little idiot. I was just reflecting on the fact that Iran has now attacked Israel, and we're kind of, looks kind of World War III-ish. Maybe I'm overreacting. Just seems really not good. That entire area. And so I hear about that earlier today, here on the warmest day we've had so far in the great state of Minnesota, that I said, oh, that's terrifying. I think I'm going to go outside and soothe myself by doing some yard work. So I go out and do yard work, and then I wind up having to clear out this area with thistles. Thistles from last summer, which I thought, oh, they can't be any good anymore. I got covered in them. I got swat in the side of the face at one point. So now everywhere that those thistles have touched, I'm itchy and burning. So that's a lot of fun. Welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansion. It's a fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion and not just recording in my basement. This is where I read the hottest public domain books and short stories. This week, I'm going to read The Velveteen Rabbit by Margery Williams, and not Treasure Island like I originally planned, because I'm getting really lazy lately. I'm going for like 2-week spans between doing episodes, and I don't know why. Want to learn about the author? Sure, I stole all this from Wikipedia. Margery Williams was born the 22nd of July, 1881, and died the 4th of September, 1944. She is an English-American author, primarily of popular children's books. A professional writer since the age of 19, she achieved lasting fame at 41 with the 1922 publication of the classic that is her best-known work, The Velveteen Rabbit. She received the Newbery Honor for Winterbound. Want to hear some fun facts I stole from LitHub.com? Sure. In 1914, Williams wrote a horror novel called The Thing in the Woods about a werewolf in the Pennsylvania region. It was later republished in the U.S., a slightly revised version under the pseudonym Harper Williams. The Thing in the Woods was known to H.P. Lovecraft, and some commentators think it may have influenced the Dunwich Horror. He also wrote a poem entitled On the Thing in the Woods by Harper Williams. So, there's that. That's fun. Oh, God, I got a lot of space left for the grandfather clock. Chimes telling me to shut up and read the story. Another thing is that this author's dad was really nice, kept trying to get her to read books, and he died when she was like 7 or something like that. So, that's really sad. Oh, God, I still got a lot of time left. I already talked about the impending World War III. I talked about the thistles smacked in my face. My wife and I decided that we're going to make our own fence. That's probably not legal where I live. You can't just make your own fence or... Oh, thank God. Okay, well, with that, why don't we dive into this story? All right, why don't you get yourself all settled? Just sit in the chair. Okay, well, let's get started. The Velveteen Rabbit, or How Toys Become Real. No one really makes titles like that anymore, where you say the name of your book and then add a or with something else on there. Basically saying, like, I got 2 titles. Which one do you like? You can choose between. It's like a choose your own adventure title. All right, let's get in there. There was once a Velveteen Rabbit, and in the beginning, he was really splendid. Oh, he's fat and punchy, as a rabbit should be. His coat was spotted brown-white, and he had real thread whiskers, and his ears were lined with pink sateen. On Christmas morning, when he sat wedged on the top of the boy's stocking with a sprig of holly between his paws, the effect was charming. Now, there are other things in the stocking, nuts, oranges, and a toy engine, chocolate almonds, and a clockwork mouse. But the rabbit was quite the best of all. For at least 2 hours, the boy loved him, and then aunts and uncles came to dinner, and there was great rustling of tissue paper and unwrapping of parcels, and in the excitement of looking at all the new presents, the Velveteen rabbit was forgotten. For a long time, he lived in the toy cupboard, or on the nursery floor, and no one thought very much about him. He was naturally shy, being only made of velveteen. Some of the more expensive toys quite snubbed him. Mechanical toys, they were very superior, and looked down upon everyone else. They were full of modern ideas and pretended they were real. The model boat, who had lived through 2 seasons and lost most of his paint, caught the tone from them and never missed an opportunity of referring to his rigging in technical terms. Now, the rabbit could not claim to be a model of anything, for he didn't know that real rabbits existed. He thought they were all stuffed with sawdust like himself, and he understood that sawdust was quite out of date. It should never be mentioned in modern circles. Even Timothy, the jointed wooden lion, who was made by the disabled soldiers, and he should have had broader views, put on airs, pretended that he was connected with government. Between them all, the poor little rabbit was made to feel himself very insignificant and commonplace, and the only person who was kind to him at all was the skin horse. Ugh, gross. The skin horse had lived longer in the nursery than any of the others. He's so old that his brown coat was in bald patches and showed the seams underneath, and most of the hairs in his tail had been pulled out to string bead necklaces. He was wise, for he had seen a long succession of mechanical toys arrive to boast and swagger, and by the by break their mainsprings and pass away. And he knew that they were only toys, and he would never turn into anything else, for nursery magic is strange and wonderful. And only those playthings that are old and wise and experienced, like the skin horse, understand all about it. What is real? Asked the rabbit one day when they were lying side by side in the nursery fender before Nana came to tidy the room. Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and stick out handle? Real isn't how you are made, said the skin horse. It's a thing that happens to you when a child loves you for a long, long time. Not just to play with, but really, in all caps, loves you. Then you become real. Does it hurt? Said the rabbit. Sometimes, said the skin horse, for he was always truthful. When you are real, you don't mind being hurt. Does it happen all at once, like being wound up? He asked, or bit by bit? It doesn't happen all at once, said the skin horse. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily or have sharp edges or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you're real, most of your hair has been loved off. Your eyes drop out. You get loose at the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except for to people who don't understand. I suppose you are real. God, he was once. Skin horse, said the rabbit. Burp. And then he wished that he had not said it, for he thought the skin horse might be sensitive. I thought he was going to address the fact that you're literally made of something that was once alive. But the skin horse only smiled. The boy's uncle made me real, he said. That was a great many years ago. But once you're real, you can't become unreal again. It lasts for always. Rabbit sighed, and he thought it'd be a long time before the magic called real happened to him. He longed to become real, to know what it felt like, and yet the idea of growing shabby and losing his eyes and whiskers was rather sad. He wished that he could become it without these uncomfortable things happening to him. There was a person called Nana, who ruled the nursery. Sometimes she took no notice of the playthings lying about, and sometimes, for no reason whatsoever, she went swooping about like a great wind and hustled them away in the cupboards. And she called this tidying up, and the playthings all hated it, especially the tin ones. The rabbit didn't mind so much, for wherever he was thrown, he came down soft. One evening, when the boy was going to bed, he couldn't find the China dog that always slept with him. Nana was in a hurry, and it was too much trouble to hunt for the China dogs at bedtime, so she simply looked about her, seeing that the toy cupboard door stood open, and made a swoop. "Here," she said, "take your old bunny. He'll do to sleep with you." And she dragged the rabbit out by the ear and put him in the boy's arms. Well, that night, for many nights after, the Velveteen rabbit slept in the boy's bed. At first, he found it rather uncomfortable, for the boy hugged him very tight. And sometimes he rolled over on him, and sometimes he pushed him so far under the pillow that the rabbit could scarcely breathe. And he missed, too, those long moonlit hours in the nursery, when all the house was silent, and his talks with the skin horse. But very soon, he grew to like it, for the boy used to talk to him and made nice tunnels for him under the bedclothes that he said were like burrows the real rabbits lived in, and they had splendid games together in whispers when Nana had gone away to her supper and left the nightlight burning on the mantelpiece. And when the boy dropped off to sleep, the rabbit would snuggle down close under his little warm chin and dream, and the boy's hands clasped close around him all night long. And so time went on, and the little rabbit was so very happy, so happy, that he never noticed how his beautiful velveteen fur was getting shabbier and shabbier, and his tail becoming unsewn, and all the pink rubbed off his nose where the boy had kissed him. Spring came now, and they had long days in the garden, for wherever the boy went, the rabbit went too. He had rides in the wheelbarrow and picnics on the grass, and lovely fairy huts built for him under the raspberry canes behind the flower border. And once, when the boy was called away suddenly to go out to tea, the rabbit was left out on the lawn until long after dusk, and Nana had to come and look for him with the candle, because the boy couldn't go to sleep unless he was there. Well, he was wet through with the dew and quite earthy from diving in the burrows the boy had made for him in the flower bed, and as Nana grumbled and she rubbed him off with the corner of her apron, "You must have your old bunny," she said. "Fancy all that fuss for a toy." The boy sat up in bed and outstretched his hands. "Give me my bunny," he said. "You mustn't say that. He isn't a toy, he's real." When the little rabbit heard that, he was so happy. For he knew that what the skin horse had said was true at last. The nursery magic had happened to him, and he was a toy no longer. He was real. The boy himself had said it. That night, he's almost too happy to sleep, and so much love stirred in his little sawdust heart that it almost hurt or burst. I just can make up words. It's fine. I can make up anything I want. I'm the one reading. And into his boot-button eyes that had long ago lost their polish, there came a look of wisdom and beauty. And even Nana noticed the next morning when she picked him up and said, "I declare, that old buddy has got quite a knowing expression." A couple of big spaces, then, "That was a wonderful summer!" exclamation point. Near the house where they lived there was a wood, and in long June evenings the boy liked to go there after tea to play. He took the Velveteen rabbit with him, and before he wandered off to pick flowers or to play at brigands among the trees, he always made the rabbit a little nest somewhere among the bracken, where he would be quite cozy, for he was a kind-hearted little boy, and he liked Bunny to be comfortable. One evening, while the rabbit was lying there alone, watching the ants that ran to and fro between his velvet paws and grass, he saw two strange beings creep out of the tall bracken near him. They were rabbits like himself, but quite furry and brand new. They must have been very well made, for their seams didn't show at all. And they changed shape in a queer way when they moved. 1 minute, it means like the bones and muscle moving around under the skin. That's a disturbing way of writing that. 1 minute they were long and thin, and the next minute fat and bunchy, instead of always staying the same like he did. While their feet padded softly on the ground, and they crept quite close to him, twitching their noses, while the rabbit stared hard to see which side the clockwork stuck out, for he knew that people who jump generally have something to wind them up, but he couldn't see it. They were evidently a new kind of rabbit altogether. Well, they stared at him, and the little rabbit stared back, and all the time their noses twitched. Why don't you get up and play with us? One of them asked. I don't feel like it, said the rabbit, for he didn't want to explain that he had no clockwork. Ho, said the furry rabbit. It's as easy as anything. And he gave a big hop sideways and stood on his hind legs. I don't believe you can, he said. I can, said the little rabbit. I can jump higher than anything. And he meant when the boy threw him, but of course he didn't want to say so. Can you hop on your hind legs? Asked the furry rabbit. Oh, that was a dreadful question, for the Velveteen rabbit had no hind legs at all. Oh, and the back of him was made in one piece, like a pincushion. Oh, he sat still in the bracken and hoped that he and other rabbits wouldn't notice. I don't want to, he said again. But the wild rabbits have very sharp eyes, and this one stretched out his neck and looked. He's got any hind legs, he called out. Fancy a rabbit without any hind legs, he began to laugh. Wow, what if it was a rabbit that just was born without legs? Why do you got to be so hard on this rabbit that's got a disability, as far as you know? I have, cried the rabbit. I've got hind legs. I'm sitting on them. Well, with that, why don't we take a little break, huh? Hey, get out of this stuffy library. Why don't we go someplace with a little more fresh air, a little more cleaner atmosphere, a little less dusty and gross. Let's go down to the basement where I can play my guitar to you under 2 naked light bulbs while I let you know about the latest upcoming books from Penguin Random House. You showed up. Go on, take a seat there in that folding chair underneath that naked light bulb while I stand over here underneath this naked light bulb and play my guitar to you, as you can hear me doing, as I let you know about the latest upcoming book from Penguin Random House. It's a reissue of Lady Chatterley's Lover. Yes, it's an introduction by John Sutherland. It's by D.H. Lawrence, part of the Everyman's Library Contemporary Classic Series. Want to learn about it? Sure. Famously banned for indecency, Lawrence's final novel is one of the most notorious and passionate love stories in literature. Constance Reed, Lady Chatterley, is a young woman trapped in an unfulfilling marriage to an aristocrat whose war wounds have left him paralyzed. And after her, that's what makes it unfulfilling, it's just that he can't perform for her. I already don't like this. I've never read this book. I actually don't know anything about this book. I just know people make jokes about this book. Oh, after her husband demands it, she provide him with an heir. She enters into a liaison with her gamekeeper, a working-class man named Oliver Mellors. Their illicit relationship grows in tenderness, mutual respect, and sensual passion. Constance discovers a true fulfillment requires a real connection of both mind and body, shocking to its original audience for its cross-class romance, as well for its explicit descriptions of sex. Oh, the novel has long been hailed as the summit of Lawrence's artistic achievement, and one of the most influential novels of the 20th century. Yes, that's Lady Chatterley's Lover, by D.H. Lawrence. You can find it at Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, Hudson Booksellers, Powell's, Target, and stay away from that part of the store, because you don't want to see people getting all moist and worked up when they see it on the shelves of Walmart. Well, with that, why don't we get back upstairs and read a kid's story? I'll see you up there. Well, I can't wait to get up here and surprise them. Oh, look at that, you're already here. You beat me. Okay, well, why don't we dive back into the book? Well, "Well, then stretch them out and show me, like this," said the wild rabbit, and he began to whirl around and dance, till the little rabbit got quite dizzy. "I don't like dancing," he said. "I'd rather sit still." But all the while he was longing to dance, for the funny new tickly feeling ran through him, and he felt that he would give anything in the world to be able to jump about like these rabbits did. Oh, the strange rabbit stopped dancing, came quite close, and he came so close this time that his long whiskers brushed the Velveteen rabbit's ear. And then he wrinkled his nose suddenly and flattened his ears and jumped backwards. "That doesn't smell right," he exclaimed. "He isn't a rabbit at all. He isn't real." "I am real," said the rabbit. "I am real. The boy said so." And he nearly began to cry. Just then there was a sound of footsteps, and the boy ran past near them, and with a stamp of his feet and a flash of white tails, the two strange rabbits disappeared. "Come back and play with me," called the rabbit. "Oh, do come back. I know I'm real." Well, there was no answer. Only the little ants ran to and fro, and the bracken swayed gently, and there were two strangers had passed. The Velveteen Rabbit was all alone. "Oh, dear," he thought. "Why did they run away like that? Why couldn't they stop and talk to me?" Well, for a long time he lay very still, watching the bracken and hoping that they would come back, but they never returned, and presently the sun sank lower and the little white moths fluttered about. The boy came and carried him home. Weeks passed, and the little rabbit grew very old and shabby, but the boy loved him just as much. Oh, he loved him so hard that he loved all his whiskers off. Oh, and the pink lining to his ears, yeah, they turned gray, and the brown spots faded. He even began to lose his shape, and he scarcely looked like a rabbit anymore, except to the boy. To him, he was always beautiful, and that's all that the rabbit cared about. But he didn't mind how he looked to other people, because the nursery magic had made him real, and when you're real, shabbiness doesn't matter. And then, one day, the boy was ill. Oh, his face grew very flushed. Oh, he talked in his sleep. Oh, and his little body was so hot that it burned the rabbit when he held him close. Strange people came and went into the nursery, and a light burned all night through it. And the little Velveteen Rabbit lay there, hidden from sight under the bedclothes, and he never stirred, for he was afraid that if they found him, someone might take him away, and he knew that the boy needed him. It was a long, weary time, for the boy was too ill to play, and the little rabbit found it rather dull with nothing to do all day long. So he snuggled down patiently and looked forward to the time when the boy would be well again, and when they would go out to the garden amongst the flowers, and the butterflies, and play splendid games in the raspberry thicket, like they used to do. Oh, all sorts of delightful things he planned. And while the boy lay half asleep, he crept up close to his pillow and whispered them in his ear. And presently the fever turned, and the boy got better, and he was able to sit up in bed and look at picture books while the rabbit, cuddled close by his side. And one day, they let him get up and dress. It was a bright, sunny morning, and the windows stood wide open, and they had carried the boy out onto the balcony and wrapped in a shawl, and the little rabbit lay tangled up among the bedclothes thinking. Oh, the boy was going to the seaside tomorrow. Everything was arranged, and now it only remained to carry out the doctor's orders. They talked about it all, and while the little rabbit lay under his bedclothes with his head just peeping out and listened, the room was to be disinfected, and all the books and the toys that the boy had played with in bed must be burnt. Hurrah, thought the little rabbit, tomorrow we shall go to the seaside, for the boy had often talked of the seaside, and he wanted very much to see the big waves coming in, and the tiny crabs, and sand castles. Just then, Nana caught sight of him. How about this old bunny, she asked. That, said the doctor, why, that's a mass of scarlet fever germs. Burned it at once. What? Nonsense. Get him a new one. He mustn't have that thing anymore. And so the little rabbit was put into a sack with the old picture books and a lot of rubbish and carried it out to the end of the garden behind the fowl house. That was a fine place to make a bonfire, only the gardener was too busy just then to attend to it. He had the potatoes to dig and the green peas to gather, and the next morning he promised to come quite early and burn the whole lot. That night, the boy slept in a different bedroom, and he had a new bunny to sleep with him. It was a splendid bunny, all white plush with real glass eyes. But the boy was too excited to care about it very much, so for tomorrow, he was going to go to the seaside, and that in itself was such a wonderful thing that he could not think of anything else. And while the boy was asleep, dreaming of the seaside, the little rabbit lay among the old picture books in the corner behind the fowl house, and he felt very lonely. The sack had been left untied, and so, by wriggling a bit, he was able to get his head through the opening and look out. He was shivering a little, for he had always been used to sleeping in a proper bed, and by this time his coat had worn so thin and threadbare from hugging that it was no longer any protection to him. Nearer he could see the thicket of raspberry canes growing tall and close like a tropical jungle, in whose shadow he had played with a boy on bygone mornings. He thought of those long sunlit hours in the garden. How happy they were, and a great sadness came over him. He seemed to see them all pass before him, each more beautiful than the other. The fairy huts in the flower bed, the quiet evenings in the wood when he would lay bracken and the little ants ran over his paws, the wonderful day when he first knew that he was real. He thought of the skin horse, so wise and gentle, that all that had told him, and of what use was it to be loved and to lose one's beauty and become real if it all ended like this, and a real tear, trickled down his little shabby velvet nose and fell to the ground. And then a strange thing happened. For where the tear had fallen, a flower grew out of the ground. Mysterious flower. Not at all like any that grew in the garden. It had a slender green leaves and the color of emeralds. In the center of the leaves, a blossom-like cusp. It was so beautiful. And the little rabbit forgot to cry and just lay there watching it. And presently, a blossom opened, and out of it stepped a fairy. She's quite loveliest fairy in the whole world. Her dress was a pearl of dewdrops. Oh, and there were flowers around her neck and in her hair. And her face was like the most perfect flower of all. And she came close to the little rabbit, and gathered him up in her arms, and kissed him on his velveteen nose that was all damp from crying. Little rabbit, she said, don't you know who I am? Well, the rabbit looked up at her. But it seemed to him that he had seen her face before, but he couldn't think where. I am the nursery magic fairy, she said, and I'll take care of all the playthings that the children have ever loved. And when they're old and worn out, and the children don't need them anymore, then I come and take them away with me and turn them into real. Wasn't I real before? Asked the rabbit. Well, you were real to the boy, said the fairy, because he loved you so. Now you shall be real to everyone. And she held the little rabbit close in her arms and flew with him into the wood. Oh, it was light now. Oh, and the moon had risen, and the forest was beautiful, and the fronds and the bracken shone like frosted silver. In the open glade between the tree trunks, the wild rabbits danced with their shadows on the velvet grass. But when they saw the fairy, they all stopped dancing and stood around in a ring to stare at her. I brought you a new playfellow, said the fairy. You must be very kind to him, and teach him all he needs to know in Rabbit Land, for he is going to live with you forever and ever. Oh, and she kissed the little rabbit again, and put him down on the grass. Run and play, little rabbit, she said. But the little rabbit sat quite still for a moment. He never moved. For when he saw all the wild rabbits dance around him, he suddenly remembered about his hind legs. Oh, and he didn't want them to see that they're made all in one piece. He didn't know that when the fairy kissed him, that last time, she had changed him altogether, and that he might have sat there a long time too shy to move, if just then something hadn't tickled his nose. And before he thought of what he was doing, he lifted his hind toe to scratch it. Oh, and he found he actually had hind legs instead of dingy velveteen and brown fur, soft and shiny. His ears twitched by themselves, and whiskers were so long that they brushed the grass. Oh, and he gave one leap of joy for using those hind legs. It's so great that he wasn't springing about on the turf on them, jumping sideways and whirling about as others did. And he grew so excited that when he did last stop to look for the fairy, she'd gone. He is a real rabbit at last, at home with other rabbits. Autumn passed and winter, And in the spring, when the days grew warm and sunny, the boy went out to play in the wood behind the house. And while he was playing, 2 rabbits crept out from the bracket and peeped at him. And one of them was brown all over, but the other had strange markings under his fur, as though long ago he had been spotted, and the spots still showed through. And about his little soft nose and his round black eyes there was something familiar, so that the boy thought to himself, "Why, he looks just like my old bunny that I lost when I had scarlet fever." But he never knew it really was his own bunny come back to look at the child who had first helped him to be real. Well, thank God that's over. Why don't we go to the smoking room and review what the hell we just read? Oh, there you are. I've been so excited to have you come down here. Take a seat and look at what's on the table in front of you. Yes, it's a wooden ape's head. It's a wooden ape's head that if you... Oh, God. My wife put those birds in here. A wooden ape's head that if you lift the skull, it's filled with cigarettes. Go ahead, take one. Burp. Let's review what we just read. Burp. The story's real sad. I'm real glad the rabbit didn't actually get burned alive. Right? Also, I'm glad they didn't insinuate that the rabbit got burned and then, became a real rabbit or whatever. I'm glad that the fairy whisked him away, because it would have been terrifying otherwise. I watched this. This was like a movie that they used to show us all the time when I was in elementary school. They'd gather up all the kids and get us into the to the gym. We would all have to sit on the floor and our butts hurt because we're all bony little kids. And they didn't give you anything to sit on. You just sat on the floor. And then they played this movie on the screen they dropped down, and it was always sad, and you had to watch it every goddamn year. And so we'd sit there and watch it, and it was like a live action thing and then the kid at the end is just like, you look a lot like the rabbit I used to have. And I remember when I was a kid, I'd be like, screw that kid. If you love that rabbit so much, you'd be upset. You wouldn't be like, oh, look at that. It kind of reminds me of the rabbit. Anyways, I'm going to the ocean again. Whatever. So, but I didn't remember if they burned the rabbit or not. So I was a little bit terrified when I was reading that part. What did we learn? Well, it's a sad story, but it's about change and loss. And so many people think that the theme of the Velveteen Rabbit is about the kind of loss that was experienced by a lot of children during World War I, with the beloved rabbit having to be discarded due to a big event that no one could really control or foresee. Other people think that it might have to do more with Margery Williams feeling bad because her daughter had grown up so fast. Her daughter, Pamela, weirdly got famous for being a child prodigy in art, and she had her shows of her work at early as 13. The first published version of the Velveteen Rabbit in 1921 showcased her daughter's illustrations for that story. So Margery wanted to support her and help her grow and be creative, but also felt conflicted that Pamela kind of had lost her childhood a little too soon. So who knows? She actually wrote more books. One is what's the other book? One of them is another book about, The Little Wooden Doll, which the Little Wooden Doll is, apparently the premise is that it's a doll that is owned by a child that abuses her, and then the wooden doll gets given over to another kid who also abuses her, and it's not until it's given over to a third kid that the little wooden doll is finally treated right. I've set that one aside. I'm going to read that. Apparently, Margery loves writing really sad, heart-wrenching stories just to make kids cry. She likes to watch kids cry. But I have to say, I got to give Margery credit. She is one of the very few children's book authors that isn't a human piece of shit. All of them are horrible people, except for her, apparently. So that's nice. I have to look upon my Grover. I have a stuffed animal Grover that I've had since I was 5, and that sweet Grover I have loved up and slept with every night all through my childhood. And then I held on to him. So as I was reading this story, for the first time since elementary school, I thought of my Grover, whose eyes are all rubbed off, where he just looks like a zombie, and his fur is so matted he looks kind of like a pubic like a wet, like bunch of pubic. If you take a bunch of pubic hairs, I want to say the word pubic a lot. You take a bunch of pubic hairs and you just get them wet and then just throw it on the ground. It just goes splat. That's the way Grover looks. So I think about Grover, and I don't think he's real yet. I don't think he's real. He's just sitting up there, just looking old and gross. But he's my Grover, and that's the theme of this story. I'm going to keep squeezing that guy until one day he becomes a 6-foot-tall man that can help pay for bills around the house. Well, with that, I guess I'm going to let you go. I'm going to read Treasure Island, I guess. I've been putting it off. I'm just not in the mood, but I'm going to do it. So the next episode, it's going to be Treasure Island. And no, I'm not going to do any pirate impressions. Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, there's that. Are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people. Not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, just stay in the curious mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading paranormal smut. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly, glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdlinger or a dork. Now, back to business. I can't believe I drank all of them already. There's got to be one left.